Hi and welcome to this brief little preview of a couple of watches that I hope to be featuring on the channel. Now this is not one of them, I want to talk about this one in just a moment, but these two here, we've got a vintage Ingersoll wristwatch with a very nice interesting pocket watch style design, sub-seconds. Hand setting is done by pushing in the crown and rotating like a lot of old pocket watches were, so there's no pull out stem, and hand winding by winding the stem. This one is currently wound tight and not running, and this one here, which is a Continental chronograph, and this uses a pin pallet chronograph movement, and I'm really keen on having a look at this because I wanted to have a look at one of these for some time and actually missed out on buying a couple of them myself. And as it turns out, these two watches have been sent from Belgium by a friend for me to look at, and as a thanks for that, he's very kindly sent me this. Now this is a watch that has fascinated me ever since I first heard about it, and he showed it to me. This is a Phenix or Phenix stop seconds watch. Now it looks just like a nice vintage wristwatch, nothing particularly special, but there is something special about it, and what that is, I'll just demonstrate. You see the seconds hand is ticking away nicely there. You want to set the time, so you pull out the stem and there you go. The seconds not only stops but jumps back to the 12 o'clock. You can see it's slightly off center just now, but this can all be corrected because this is going to need a service anyway. So no matter where the seconds hand is during the running process, you can see you push the crown and it starts again. It's ticking away. You want to set the seconds, so you go like so. You set the time to the exact minute. Press the start. Press the pusher back in, and off you go. And I suppose you could use it as a kind of a crude chronograph, even to a degree. And I'm just going to show you the workings side of it, and I'm going to zoom in so you can have a close look. Down here in my case clamp, so I can show you this operating, we've got the movement exposed, and you can see, first of all, there's a couple of little bits I just want to point out. First of all, we've got the balance with its fixed stud there, so you can tell it's quite an old movement in that respect. And initially I thought that this was a fixed end stone, like you would find in many old sort of 50s watches and the like. And noticed on the case back, it actually says shock absorber, just up there. And taking another look, I did notice that there is in fact a little shock spring system. It's an unusual little thing, and it, as you can see, you've got a screw just here with a double forked spring which goes to either side of the cap jewel, and obviously allows for a little bit of movement and shock absorption, and that's quite a novel thing. I've not seen one like that before, so that's interesting. And over here, the bit that really interests me is we've got what looks like an extended fourth wheel pivot that you would normally find driving a clutch and then driving a center chronograph hand on something like a typical Swiss chronograph. Although this one is actually geared down in such a manner that you can see it's rotating very slowly but turning a much smaller gear on the end of the chronograph wheel, or the center seconds wheel, which is in fact very much like a chronograph wheel. And over here, connected to the setting lever, we've got a hammer and a return spring just up here behind that. So as you pull out the stem, just here, which I'm going to do, if you watch that wheel here and that hammer, hopefully if I can do this without moving it, you can see there how the hammer strikes the heart on the wheel, and it will actually set and hold that seconds hand on the 12 o'clock position. Now you can see the fourth wheel is still rotating under there, so I'm not entirely sure exactly how this works or disengages. I thought it stopped the mechanism when it did this, but it doesn't. But we'll have to save that one for another video, and I'm quite eager to find out myself As you can see, while the stem is pulled out, the hammer rests on the heart and it stops this wheel rotating. So the seconds hand remains at the 12 o'clock and you can set the time accurately to the minute. As soon as you push that stem back in, like so, the hammer lifts away and off it goes again. You can see this now starting to rotate, albeit very slowly, but it's starting to rotate, and it's turning that smaller cog underneath this tiny little chronograph bridge, as it were, to rotate the centre seconds hand. It's an absolutely fascinating little thing. I love it, absolutely love it. So a big thank you for that. The gentleman knows who he is. I'm not going to be naming names unless people otherwise specify that they're quite happy to do so. But big thank you for that. You know who you are. Much appreciated. Now let's take a look at the watches that you've sent for me to have a look at. First of all, down here we have this lovely old Ingersoll, very vintage kind of feel. It's very much a pocket watch kind of feel, but it has been designed as a wristwatch. It's actually labelled wrist. It has a large crown, large button onion type crown almost, which doesn't pull, but it pushes to set the time. So you push in and rotate to set the time, and then you turn it to wind as normal. So it's on a sprung plunger, so it doesn't pull out like a crown normally would. It's a push to set the time crown accordingly. It has a sub-seconds at 6, and we're just going to have a very quick look at the movement. It appears to be, from a brief glance earlier, a very basic movement, quite similar to what you would see in a lot of workaday, day-to-day pocket watches, with a 3/4 plate and then a separate plate covering the barrel there. There's something a little bit funky going on with the hairspring. I'm just going to zoom in close on this. Here you can see we've got something a bit out of shape with the hairspring. On the plus side of it, let me get my pegwood. On the plus side of it, we appear to have a solid balance staff. There's not actually any rock or wobble that you get with a broken balance staff, so that's always a good start. So hopefully we'll be able to sort out the hairspring and get some movement on this whole thing. There is some wear on the pivots that's even evident with the naked eye, so I don't know how well this will fare to a clean-up and a service. We'll have to wait and see. Ideally, something like this could do with rebushing, but how exactly I would go about that, I don't know at the moment. But there's some definite wear on the pivots, but hopefully if I can get things running, that would be good. You can see the centre of the barrel arbor here, which is under a separate plate. This watch is currently wound tight, and until I can get this uncased, I don't want to risk taking anything off, because I'm not entirely sure at the moment how the barrel click is held. So I don't want to take this cover off and find out that it's just going to spring everything and risk unloading all that power from the mainspring that's in there. On the dial side, while I'm here, I'm just going to pop that bezel off there. The minute hand appears to have some corrosion on the tip, and it looks like, it's probably hard to see on the video, but there is a tiny little score around where the tip of the minute hand goes, so it looks like it's been contacting that crystal. Again, zooming in close just to get a better look, and you can see there's some corrosion on the tip of the minute hand just there. So that should clean up quite nicely, and it does definitely appear, if we can get that hopefully in shot, you can see there's a definite bend and up curve of the minute hand there, so that hand is going to need to be flattened and straightened. I'm not sure how that would have happened in the past, but I'm not at all sure in fact how that would have happened. The only thing I can think is that somebody possibly took a case knife or similar to the front bezel, and the minute hand happened to be at the point where that bezel was, and the case knife slipped and actually hooked under the hand and maybe just hooked it up a little bit. That's the only thing I could think logically that happened there, but that's easy enough to rectify, thankfully. But it does look like it had been contacting the crystal, the underside of the crystal, and as I say, it's probably very hard to see under this light just now, but you can see a faint little score line where it looks like it's trailed around the crystal. But that's not bad. I'm not worried about that. That's correctable. It might lose a little bit of the bluing at the end of the minute finger, but hopefully we can get this one up and running. The next one is this Continental chronograph, and I'm really eager to get into this one because I've looked at this movement, this particular movement, online numerous times, and it's a fascinating movement because it's a chronograph, but it's a pin pallet chronograph. And pin pallets, I know a lot of people are not very keen on. They see them as cheap movements, and they were cheap movements when all said and done, but I've got a real soft spot for them. I've got a real affection for them. I've rebuilt numerous pin pallet watches and I quite enjoy them. It's a nice challenge to get something that was really designed as a throwaway thing, to get it running again, especially old ones, and it's a nice feeling to do that. This, as other than being a pin pallet, it's just an incredibly funky watch. I mean, just look at that. Isn't that great? That's so 70s. It's like late 70s dive fashion. It's currently wound tight. The pushers work. The start pusher's a bit stiff, a little bit sticky, so these will need to be stripped and cleaned. And as you can see, nothing is running, nothing is moving, and then the stop and reset. The clicks are there, but nothing is happening, as you can see. The crown is a great big chunky thing, pulls out, and you can see that you can pull it out and you can set the time on it. So it's just a matter of finding out why it doesn't run. Now I'm just going to have a very quick look. This bezel should prise off relatively easily because it's a front loader, of course. There we go. So the bezel just lifts away and it has a tension ring underneath. The crystal, do I need a crystal lift? No, the crystal is loose, so I can actually just, he says hopefully, bear with me. I think I can just get that. Yep, there we go. The crystal will lift away. Now usually with these split stems, sometimes you have to pull the stem out, but I always like to try rotating them first to see if the movement will drop out, because sometimes that does work. And I don't like pulling the stems if I can avoid it, because although they're designed to snap in and out, like anything that's metal to metal contact and is a friction fit, I am conscious of causing wear over time on them, especially if they're hard to get. But this one I don't think is going to comply. Some of them just drop out as you rotate the crown whilst holding it upside down, but this one's not going to place. So let's give that a sharp tug, and hopefully this is the part where you're hoping that nobody's replaced it with a standard stem. I'm always a little bit uneasy doing this, but hopefully. Oh, thank goodness for that. It's always a bit of a heart-stopping moment when you hear that click. It is a split stem, thankfully. And what we should be able to do now is pop that. There we go. And look at that. There's the case. It's a one-piece plastic nylon. I'm not sure what material it is. What is it? Open through crystal, Continental Economic Swiss Time Conti Fibre, whatever that may be. Conti Fibre, 5 atmosphere tested case, shock resistant, water resistant. And yeah, very 70s, very Jacques Cousteau. And the movement in all its glory is there. It is a one jewel movement, very much like a typical pin pallet, like a BFG 866 for example, but with an additional chronograph bridge on the top, and this little copper triple finger spring, and you've got your additional chronograph wheels and a driving wheel, which is obviously on an extended fourth pivot here, and then your pusher buttons. So this is your top one. If I can see if I can actuate this. There we go. So press that one in, and this causes your intermediate driving wheel to connect with your chronograph wheel there. And then if that one causes it to disconnect, and then another press should cause it to reset, I believe. I'm not entirely sure if everything's doing what it should do there, but the pushers are pushing. They're doing what they should do in that respect. It's just a matter of getting the thing unstuck, I think. So it's a one dual movement, much like any pin pallet movement. And obviously once the chronograph part is disassembled, the rest would be quite straightforward, much like a pin pallet, I should think anyway. So I'm really looking forward to taking that apart and seeing if we can make this fellow tick. The balance wheel is swinging, so that's a good start. Let's have a... That seems okay. Don't look like we have a broken pivot. We've got a little bit of, probably a little bit more shake than I would like on that balance wheel, and I think that fella might actually be overbanked. It looks like it's striking the banking pins, and it's not. See how it suddenly stops there rather than swinging, and it's almost like it's overbanked and it's jumped out of the banking pins that lock it in place. So hopefully we can get this running again. I'm really looking forward to trying that. So for now, I am just going to pop this chap back in his case, and just have a look at the dial there. Really nice dial. And pop this back in its case. I'm not going to push the stem all the way back in, because there's no point pushing it in and pulling it out unnecessarily. You can see evidence there of where somebody has gone in, poking in there with a screwdriver or similar, perhaps thinking that there was a stem release in there. Some watches that are front loaders are like that, but they usually have a notch in the dial, if that's the case, to allow you to actually get something in there to press the setting lever release. So that's a little bit of a shame, but that said, it is invisible once the crystal and the bezel ring are in place. So that will go in my drawer along with the couple of others that are waiting for attention, and hopefully I should be bringing these on to the channel soon, and we can see what makes them tick, as it were. So thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.